Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast where we're going to be talking about toxic masculinity. Does it then mean that there is no positive masculinity? Why are we focusing too much on toxic, in quotes, masculinity? And joining me today is Rugarim Dogwan.
Hi.
And Master Bruce.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're good. Guys, let's start off with the women.
Really?
Yes, we'll start with the women. There is
Wow,
no
okay.
dude. There is no dude on earth who's talking about toxic masculinity. So
Well,
what we
true,
want to
true.
understand is what is toxic masculinity. What are you guys talking about when you say this is toxic masculinity?
Okay, fine. So, starting off with what you said, right? Because does it imply that there's no such thing as healthy masculinity? I mean,
Yeah.
just the fact that you've spoken of the toxic side, just because there's a negative side, it means there is a positive side to
Okay.
it. So, to answer your question first, there is healthy masculinity.
Awesome.
Right. Yes. Glad to have that out of the way.
It's out of the way. It's out of the way.
It exists. It exists. So why do we talk mainly about toxic masculinity? It's because we're experiencing it as women. We're experiencing the toxicity of of male masculinity.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
And when you say that, right, what are we doing that can be categorized as toxic?
Okay, so perfect example.
Yeah.
So you know how online, like maybe a woman will post something, right? And when she posts something and a male comes into the comments and makes a comment, he remarks under it, and then she responds. The moment automatically he goes to denigrating the woman.
Yeah.
He goes to calling her names. Like, why are you calling me names? Let's talk about this. Let's have a discourse. Because right now, innocent, this could have actually degenerated to, but the moment I said there's toxic, you guys are toxic, right? You could have degenerated and started saying, no, but you women, you're like this, you're like this. Yeah, but you papa, or you're like, it's like, no, but let's talk about the subject matter. Don't start dragging me and calling me names and calling me out of my name and using abusive, and the language is usually abusive. We see this a lot on the internet. And then you're like, and not only on the internet, it's there in the streets. A guy says hi, and you say, maybe you're ignoring him because maybe you feel unsafe because of where you are, right? And then, or maybe he starts following you. And as a woman, I feel like, I don't want to entertain this. Unavototanga awakashata futhi. Ufunga ukuthi wakaphenga. What did I do to you? And then they go deep, and it's like, Aisha. So that's a perfect example of toxic masculinity right there.
Bruce?
Well, I guess she's raising some very valid points. But I guess going back to what you asked in the first instance is to say, why is there emphasis on toxic masculinity? Sometimes you realize these things actually happen because what lie to the healthy masculinity.
Sure.
So
Sure.
in the context of what we are discussing here, you realize like what you're saying makes sense. Those things are really unacceptable. If you tend to also notice that conversations tend to degenerate.
Like
It
wow.
ceases to be discussing matters and it then becomes about the person.
Yeah.
Which should not really be the case because everything should boil down to a contestation of ideas,
Yes,
not
true.
personalities. If you have said something that I don't agree with, it doesn't mean that you and I are fighting.
It's not thank you. It's not
the
a fight.
ideas
It's
that
a
are contested.
conversation. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, the best idea has to see the light of day. But like what I'm saying, I think there's enough examples of healthy masculinity, and we should be propping that up.
Okay.
So people have good examples.
Well, are you guys propping them up? That's the question.
Listen,
you guys propping them up?
I'm sorry.
So-
I'm yet.
Listen.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Sure.
Permission to be toxic.
Go ahead. Prove us right.
in my view,
Yeah.
it is absolute. Every form of masculinity is toxic.
Are you sure?
It's just masculinity.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, you go ahead.
Okay, fine. So when you're being chauvinistic, that's just basic masculinity. That's basically what you're saying.
No, it's just
When
my
you're being
character's
when you're
messed
being
up.
when you're being
There's nothing
when
to
you-
do with masculinity.
when you're being sexist.
I saw. Is there toxic femininity?
There is actually.
Oh,
I think
there is.
there's a lot of that. People just don't want to talk about it, but there is. It's like the cases of people like Shaddai and whatnot. I know people go all out about
You
Shaddai
and I
and
have had
whatnot.
conversations about that. Like,
We have had conversations about that, but there are also female Shaddais who do the
Yes.
exact same thing about
Yes.
just about the same thing that Shaddai does.
Yeah,
Nobody wants
true.
to call them out. But everybody's on about Shaddai and whatnot. Of course, people are entitled to their
Yeah,
opinion at the
true,
end of the day.
true.
You're allowed to agree with them or to disagree with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the same applies. But why is nobody talking about women who are doing perhaps exactly the same thing that he's also doing? Or
I think
more
maybe
extreme.
because the women are not as vocal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in women not being as vocal about, like, I will agree that there are female misogynists. Yo.